Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night from wherever in the world you're joining us. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us. Although we're now 8 days into July, today's session is inspired by June's Alzheimer and Brain Awareness Month and Men's Health Month. Because brain health isn't something that, we should just talk about once a year. These are issues that, deserve our attention daily. And this is a conversation that, today is more timely than ever, especially with the environment that we're in with technology and, juggling work-life balance. My name is Caroline Raffi. I'm the VP of Enterprise with Ducere Global Business School. Ducere Global Business School here, we have different partners, and what we focus on is to deliver um, high education, high quality higher education. And what we focus on is to overcome barriers for our students, whether it's cost, whether it's time, whether it's entry criteria, and we're here to help. We believe that higher education is should be for anyone that wants to be able to take advantage of it. And I'm honored to be joining by Baroness Susan Greenfield, one of the world's leading voice in neuroscience. Her work has helped reshape how we understand the brain, from how it responds to stress, to technology, to how we can build habits that support clarity, creativity, and long-term resilience. So whether you're leading teams or studying or caregiving or simply trying to stay focused in today's fast-moving world, um, this conversation will offer practical insights for strengthening and protecting your mind. So I'm personally very excited about it. I'm very passionate in this topic. I'm gonna, Baroness, if I may, I'm gonna read about your bio because I don't want to miss
Please,
anything.
please address me as Susan. Otherwise, I feel like something out of Alice in Wonderland. So
Okay,
please,
I'll call you Susan, but for
go,
introduction.
go.
Baroness Greenfield, founder and CEO of NeuroBio Ltd, is a neuroscientist, writer, and broadcaster. She has published over 250 papers in peer-reviewed journals, based mainly at Oxford University, and has held research fellowship at the Collège de France Paris, NYU Medical Center in New York, and Melbourne University. She holds 32 honorary degrees from UK and foreign university, has received numerous honors, including, I'm going to butcher this, Legion d'honneur from
Mhm.
the French government, an honorary fellowship from the Royal College of Physicians, the American Academy of Achievement Golden Plate Award, and the Australian Medical Research Society Medal. She's also a fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. Thank you so much for joining us.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I'm going to jump right in. So you spent your career exploring the brain,
Hmm.
obviously. So what's the most surprising thing we know about how stress impacts long-term brain health, especially in this age of, digital stimulation, multitasking, AI or whatnot?
Well, it's certainly linked to Alzheimer's. Many factors can lead to it, but stress puts you in a condition possibly where your cardiovascular system, that's to say your heart and your blood pressure, are inappropriate, they're compromised. And we know that that in turn can be a factor in triggering Alzheimer's disease as cardiovascular symptoms. Also, if you're stressed, you're not doing healthy things like sleeping and exercising and eating well. So again, you'd be having indirect effects that would be very damaging to the aging of the brain.
So thank you for that. So when we talk about stress, because there's good stress and then there's toxic stress. So
Mm-hmm.
how does your brain recognize which one's good stress, which one is bad stress? And then
Mm-hmm.
how much capacity do you have for each? Because then
Yeah.
there's also mental fatigue that comes
Well,
along.
we can think of some examples of good stress so we know what we're speaking about. So, Winston Churchill, for example, allegedly only had 4 hours sleep a night. And I think probably we could safely say during the Second World War, he was probably just a bit stressed. So similarly, Margaret Thatcher, sorry to cite British heads of state, but they're two very obvious examples of people that seem to thrive on having horrendous amounts of worry and concern. And someone did an experiment ages ago. It's quite famous, and I'm sure you may have heard of it, or the people watching may have heard of this. It's where they wondered why blue collar workers seem to suffer from a higher rate of heart disease than white collar workers. Okay, because the white collar workers were in just as much stress. And the critical factor seemed to be whether or not you are in control of the situation. So if you think about Margaret Thatcher or Churchill, or perhaps your average white collar executive, yes, they're stressed, but they can choose what to do and how to get out of it if there is a way out of it. And in animals, a very sad model of stress is to shock an animal but not let them have a way of escape. Yeah. And so one could argue that the blue collar workers were more stressed because the pressure was imposed from outside rather than from within. And if the pressure is imposed from within, like you really want to train for a race, or you really want to train well for an exam or for a career or for something important in your life, you are imposing your own stress. Yeah, and that is good stress. And you're in control, as Thatcher and Churchill arguably were in their positions. Whereas if someone is constantly telling you what to do, I'm thinking scenarios, for example, very at the moment topical one in the UK is coercive control, where you have a very dominant partner controlling and stressing out on a daily basis their partner, usually the woman. That's an example where you can't see a way out, where you can't find a solution, where you don't know when the next horrible thing is coming, but it's out of your control. So that's the difference between what we could call good stress, which is the kind of motivation energy that helps you win a war, or the bad stress is when you know something horrible is going to happen and you can't do anything about it.
Thank you. And then does um how do you, if we're monitoring ourselves, how can you uh, how can you control that? And then how do you know that, okay, this is because then also, as humans, you can think of victimizing yourself, for lack of a better word, or making a change, that comes, but then how do you know that, okay, this is really taking a toll, or no, I have more capacity. And then
Well,
when
your
it
body will
happens,
tell you. I think, if you're not sleeping well, if you're waking up in the middle of the night, as perhaps we all have at some stage, in a
mhm,
sweat, worried, that is not a good sign. Yeah. um,
yeah,
if, if you find that your diet is out of kilter, you're either eating too much or too little. Yeah.
yeah,
I think your body is very good at telling you whether it's okay or not okay. And if you're sleeping well and you feel rested, and if
yeah,
you're not eating excessively or starving yourself, then they're the things to watch out for. It's quite straightforward. But above all, maintaining healthy exercise. And I personally run in the mornings when I can, and that doesn't make the problems go away, but I feel that I'm across them in a way that I don't feel if I've missed out on running. You
yeah,
come back and you feel you can cope and you can deal with it. And I think we all know that feeling. The fact you're nodding means that you must know that feeling. So
yeah.
that's what to use is, are you on top of it? Yes, there's a problem, but are you on top of it? Or is it something that you feel is snowing you over, that's really, overcrowding you?
Yeah. So even though your brain, and this is all internal, but actually being physically active, so you're working kind of like outside in.
Well, your brain isn't an isolated brain in a. The philosophers use about brain in vat. It's not. It works in conjunction with your immune system and your endocrine system. If it didn't do that, you'd have biological anarchy. Yeah. So you have these three great control systems of the body: the immune system, the endocrine system, and the central nervous system, and they all interface in ways that we only vaguely understand, but we know they occur because of the placebo effect, for example, with drugs, where you can take sugared water and you're told it's a medicine, and in certain scenarios that works to the extent that pharmaceutical companies include that in their drug trials, a placebo. So it's a very robust phenomenon, though a very mysterious one. So because we have this interface, that explains also why quite often when you're depressed you get ill.
Hmm.
A higher instance of feelings. Yeah. So that is an example of the immune system and the central nervous system working together. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So far, what I'm gathering is just paying attention to your habits. So like you said, like eating, the way you're sleeping, the way your body is actually communicating with you.
Yes,
Then
listen to your body. Yeah,
listen to your body, and then also take control of your life, right? Because yeah, we might not be running countries, but we're running our lives. So
sure.
make sure that, because that will turn into good stress rather than
Well, if you feel you're in control. So I remember 1,000 years ago, and when I was a student, you'd do a revision timetable. If you felt overpowered by all the things you had to revise before an exam, the revision timetable was the thing. It's where you say, Monday I'll do this, Tuesday, and that is a very gentle little example of how that's attempt at controlling something. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
organizing it. So you feel, I think we all know this, and how therapeutic it is to sort out your sock drawer, or your closet, as you'd call it. It's things like that are very therapeutic because you've got some modicum of control over the world. If you're sorting out your underwear and your socks or your closet, you feel things are.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that they're examples of how, in a very simple way, taking control. Doing timetables, making lists, all that sort of stuff. So you feel all sorts of things.
I love that. Yeah, someone said that whatever, like the outside, like if your room is messy, to your point, if your closet, if that's a reflection of what's actually going on in your head. So
Yeah.
organizing things, like even if it's very small, it makes a big change.
Small things will make a big change because they're not small to you.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So talking about solutions, what are some strategies? So let's say if you're having mental fatigue and
Mm.
because decision overload, because sometimes it's like you've had such a long day and you've been making decisions all day, talk about little things or big things. You go out to dinner and you're looking at the dinner menu and you're like, I don't even want to make a decision of what I want to eat, right? So what are some strategies to
Yeah.
bounce back from that?
Inabilities to make decisions are one of the signs that things are not well. That if you can't even sort out whether you want the chicken or the fish, then
Yeah.
it's that sort of issues. I think there's three things that I suggest to people, especially in this cyber world where we're in front of screens. I think there's three things you can do.
Mhm.
First, yes, physical exercise, and ever since COVID, and I took up running because I used to play squash. But running for me is the easiest because it doesn't cost anything. You don't have to book anything. You don't have to plan anything with anyone. You don't have to. All you need is a good pair of running shoes. That's all you need. And as soon as you put your foot out, wherever you live, I'm sure you can find somewhere, that you
Yeah.
can run. So just jogging, running, is, or any form of sport, but whatever you enjoy doing and whatever's practical and easy for you to do, because we know that keeps the body mass index in check. And we know that it can enhance the growth of new neurons, so-called neurogenesis. That's been shown, and it's also been shown that in people of the same age, those who exercise are cognitively better at certain tasks than people that don't, memory tasks and so on. So it ticks every box, to do. So certainly physical exercise. If possible, the other thing I like to do is eating together, because I think all too often now we grab a sandwich at the keyboard, yeah? Whereas in the old days, especially when food took time to prepare because it wasn't instant and a hyper process and so on,
Hmm.
the very term companion is with bread, and compañeros is with bread. So it's a very close and very primitive ritual that human beings have gone through. Most dating will start at some stage. It takes someone out a date. It's for a meal. When someone comes to your house, what do? You offer them food or drink or nibbles or something. Yeah. So eating together is a very powerful human bonding and restores equilibrium. It's very ritualistic. And if one isn't doing that, if one's just taking in calories alone,
Yeah.
I think that could disrupt your equilibrium in some ways. Yeah. So that's one. So if possible, eat together. And with no mobile phones out, obviously.
And
Just
what? I'm sorry?
with leaving mobile phones, cell phones.
Ah,
Yeah.
without, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Got
Leaving
it.
them in the bag. Yeah.
And
Um,
so I would say that that goes hand in hand with being mindful, like practicing mindfulness, at least when you're eating.
Yeah, well, if you're with someone, it'd be better to practice on them. Be not
Mhm.
mindful on yourself, but just listen to what they're saying. Have a thought. Yeah, let them speak, and then you reply. It's called having a conversation in real time, and it's socializing. So that's the things to do. And then the third thing is this is again very simple. See, all these things are virtually free or easy to do. Is reading. Now, why I say reading a book, is it takes you to another place. It takes you to a world or to a different country or a different time, where you have an insight into the mind of someone else, if it's a good novel. Yeah. Um, and that I think is a good form, not just of escapism, but of practicing a long attention span, practicing your imagination. Because when you read a book, the characters have some kind of shadowy persona. But so that's why we always say the film is better than the book is better than the film usually, you know. And
So
when you
is that
see them,
different? Yeah. So is that
yeah,
different than audio, like listening to Audible, for example?
oh, it
Or
is, that's fine. But reading, actually turning over pages, and
Mhm.
you being in control of reading, and then putting the book down, staring at the window, and then putting it down. That very act has been shown, even compared to Kindle, reading paper books is superior in terms of the impact they have. Someone called Anna Mangan, Oslo University, showed this. So reading, and it just calms you down. You know, it slows down everything so that you have a beginning, a middle, and end. You're reading a story, you're having insights in a way that you wouldn't have if you were, say, playing a video game. And I often say, can you imagine Jane Austen as a video game? Yeah, just wouldn't work, would it? It's because the whole point of books is not so much action, although it can be. It's more what people are thinking and feeling, how they're relating to each other, how they're communicating. So you learn. Also, incidentally, you learn better communication skills because your vocabulary increases if it's a good novel. Yeah?
Yeah.
You just subliminally pick those up. So reading, which again is pretty much free because anyone can go to a library, let alone buy books. Yeah. So eating together, exercise, and reading, I would suggest as the three core activities as a counterbalance to the cyber world.
Thank you. So, and
Mm.
then more on reading, because I think we're just so bombarded by information all day, every day, and
Mhm.
kind of like you're scrolling, you're technically reading, but it's not what you're referring to. So, would that matter if you are, because I'm trying to understand, is it the more like creative way, creative part of your mind you're trying to train, or does it count if you're reading like learning about, I don't know, something about science or math or
So,
whatever?
yeah, if you mean fact versus fiction,
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it depends, of course, why you're reading things. Yeah. But yes, if you're reading a documentary, or say you're reading a biography about someone, again, that requires imagination. If you're reading a biography of someone in the past, you can imagine what it must have been like from them, and you can imagine how,
Got
seeing how
it.
they reacted to people and so on. Actual facts, like if you're reading the second law of thermodynamics, obviously, that's a very different
That's right.
science. And that's not actually, well, that's reading. I don't mean that as recreational reading. Recreational reading, I mean something that you would do not to objectively learn something, but just to have a certain experience. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
understood. Thank you for that. So you were mentioning, eating at your keyboard, which I mean,
Yeah, well, we all
I
do.
feel like
We all
we're
do.
all guilty of that. Uh,
Yeah.
so considering the type of, life that we're in now, social media, remote working, because when you're going to the office, there is that, water cooler conversations. You go out to
Yeah.
grab coffee,
Sure.
whatnot, but when you're working from home, you're always on.
Sure.
And then particularly the hot topic of AI, now being added to
I
the
know.
pile. So today's tech environment in general is changing the way that our brain is working on a daily basis. So do you feel that we're getting smarter, or do you feel like it's working the opposite? We're getting becoming less smart, we're going down the hill. How
Okay.
is
So it
that
depends.
affecting?
The first thing, obviously, it depends what you do, how you're defining smart, and what you mean by smart. Yeah. My own view is that outsourcing your skills, which some people do on AI, is not a good thing because you're dependent on external, like students that ask AI to write their essays for them. Actually, they're not doing anyone any favors, yeah, because you're outsourcing the ability to put together an argument and to make an argument and to articulate it well. So you end up with a society of people that are good at using machines
Hmm.
but not much else. And there's an amazing quote by someone called Isaac Asimov, the writer, back in 1964. And he was making a prediction of what the world would be like 50 years on, hence 2014. Okay, so this was even 2014. And he said something like, the dominant problem will be the disease of boredom. Yeah. The
Wow.
true elite of mankind, the true elite, which is a rather unfortunate term, but the true elite of mankind will be those who are in creative activities of any sort. And then this is the killer line, for they alone will do more than serve a machine. They alone will do more than serve a machine. And as soon as you are engaging with AI or outsourcing to AI, you're serving the machine, it's not serving you. Yeah. And I think the power of that technology, it should be harnessed to put something in, not put something out. It should be helping you do things. And funny enough, I was at a meeting about 2 weeks ago where we were divided into three groups to tackle. Yeah, and
Mhm.
each group was given the task, and one group had to just use AI to solve the task. The second group, for the first half, had to discuss among themselves, face-to-face human beings, and then turn to ChatGPT and then AI. And the other group had to first use AI and then stop halfway through. And guess which group did worse? The AI group. They came up with the least solutions, the least. Yeah. And I was in the middle group, luckily, that talked. And actually, someone commented as we were having insights into this that while we were actually talking, we were engaged, and it was a lively discussion, and we were sparking ideas of each other. Then, when we had to switch to AI, everyone just became stone cold, and the AI was saying things like, "That's a good idea." Exclamation mark, and it wasn't very, it was all a bit, frankly, it's now, according to this presentation I was watching, that yes, AI can be helpful, but it doesn't substitute for human creativity, and yes, it can assist. But if you're relying just on that, then it's rather shallow shadow of its existence. And it saddens me that we are embracing a world, and we always have had this sort of flirtation with machinery and non-biology intelligence, ever since 2001, the film with Hal and so on. Yeah, it saddens me. What kind of world would we have? And I saw, of all things, I saw a clip of Elon Musk shaking hands with a robot, then getting into an automatically driven car and so on. Do we really want a world where we don't hug each other, where we are interfaced with keyboards and automatic things that take us everywhere and don't have any agency or any compassion and I think we need to think very carefully that although it's cute and fun and all the rest of it, and the technology is hugely impressive, um, what kind of lifestyle will it give you? There's sort of fakery of AI, and again, where you have fake people, where you and I could now be simulated by AI saying different things, and
Yeah.
fake news. Yeah. If you live in a world where you can no longer discern truth from fake, um, if you can be easily faked, and so it just saddens me that it might challenge our very notion of what it means to be you and what it means to be special, what it means to be close and warm with someone, to have curiosity, to try and find things out on your own. That journey,
Yes.
all those things may be in peril. I don't want to sound like someone who's in the Amish or anything like this, but it does. Someone perhaps of my generation in particular would fear that, but I think it's something that we need to be mindful of when we think of humanity. But people always are very excited about technology. And I remember, when computers were at home, the home computer and the Walkman and and in 2001, everyone always loves conscious computers and dialects. And I was old enough to remember the dialects of Doctor Who on British television. Yeah, everyone loves this. It's a certain kind of fascination with anything that is not biological intelligence, but it has its limits because those systems don't have agency, they don't have immune systems, and they don't have endocrine systems, and as far as we know, they don't have any desire to do anything until they're programmed to do so. Yeah.
Hmm. I love what you said that as long as it's serving you, not
Yeah.
you're serving it.
Yeah.
That's big. That's really good to like keep reminding yourself. I
Mhm.
I wish I remember where I heard this to give credit, but it was beautifully said that we talk about life being a journey and then you get to
Mhm.
your goal or your destination. And if you are, to your point, if you're serving it, then you're going from A to B and you're missing the journey. So
Sure.
you're talking about all the creativity, all the ups and downs, and you're
Yeah.
taking the fun out of it. You're just getting from point A to B, and then what?
Yeah, exactly. But the whole point is what goes on inside your head and what goes in inside your consciousness and your mind. And if you're just outsourcing all the time,
Yep.
um, then there's no fulfillment or satisfaction. There's no individual contribution from you as a person. In fact, we challenge who are you as a person if all you're doing is putting out, as you say, going from A to B without anything happening in the middle.
Yeah.
Mm,
So we have 5 more minutes before we open to Q&A. So three questions.
sure.
One, like I want to keep it on a positive note. So what gives you hope and excitement right now when
Mm,
it comes to brains? Because brain is adaptable. So what gives you hope in this, day of age, what we're experiencing with AI and all that? especially when it comes to the brain's ability to adapt and heal and thrive.
Oh, I think just mixing with people and seeing all different types of people and how they cope with problems and how they solve problems. And certainly, I don't know how much this will chime with anyone else, but over the last year, I've become a Christian. And that gives me huge hope with the people I meet at church and the people, that and my vicar is the most amazing person. And what gives me hope is that attitude and that kindness and that openness and that humility and those things. I think there's much need from this world. So I don't know how many people are churchgoers that are watching, but for me, I came to it very late in life, and it was very rewarding and really gave a much new dimension, positive dimension to things.
So, you keep talking about what I hear, if I'm hearing it correctly, is community. That sense of community is very
Yeah,
because we're packed animals, right?
but yeah, we interact with each other. No man is an island, as John said. Yeah, and I think the most important thing to most of us is to feel loved and to feel appreciated and to feel respected. And a lot of the strife, certainly on social media, is when people are disrespected. This is new. You're not properly respected, and I gather a lot of gang violence is when people aren't properly respected or they perceive a slight in something. Yeah, for these very fragile egos. Yeah, that people have
Yeah.
sometimes. Yeah, and these very fragile thin skin. So I think what's important there is having resilience, but that only comes by having confidence in yourself and strength in yourself. And that can only come by not being dependent on too many external things, but having your own confidence as an individual and pride to be the person you are. I think those things are important.
Thank you.
Mm.
So obviously you're an expert in this, but when you think, like going back to, because we're talking about Alzheimer, Parkinson,
Mhm.
things like that. So when it comes to these diseases, when do you think diseases like Alzheimer,
Mhm.
Parkinson, will be things of the past? Like how?
Okay, so yeah, it's my dream. It's not so much that we will have a cure and it will go away, but I say to my mum about TB or about smallpox or polio, when was that ever a problem? And in her day, of course, TB was the great killer. Tuberculosis was the great killer, as
Mhm.
was cancer. They wouldn't even say the word; they'd just say the C word, because even by saying it, they thought they were going to give themselves cancer just by using the word. Yeah. So things have changed a lot with those things, and I think with Alzheimer's, we can very realistically contemplate a scenario where your grandchildren would say to you, "Was it ever a problem, Alzheimer's?" And the reason I'm optimistic for that is the work we do. And if people want to look at our website, they'll see it's neuro-bio.com. And you'll see
Can
we have
I'm gonna put it in the chat. Can you or
neuro, neuro
mhm,
hyphen bio.com, neurobio.
.com. Okay, I'm gonna put it in the chat here.
Yeah. So people want to look at that. Yeah, there we are, neurobio. They'll see we've got a very different approach to everyone else, which meant it was uphill for the last 10 years, but we're now gradually getting, I think, traction and people are starting to concede that we might be right or we have something. And if we're right, what we could offer as a package of a home-based screen that just said go no go, that didn't tell you had Alzheimer's, that would be ethical, yeah. But just a screen, what you call an antigen test, we call lateral flow. You just take some home-based screen that you get that's cheap and easy, a nasal swab, and if it was go rather than no go, you'd go to the doctors, they'd do a saliva test, and if it works as we think it should or could or seems to be, that would be sent off for a day or two, and then it would come back. And that would tell you if indeed you had Alzheimer's ongoing. Because one of the big problems that's actually prevented treatment being as effective as it could be is there's a window of 10 to 20 years from the onset of neurodegeneration to the actual appearance of the
Oh,
memory problems. Yeah. And that's one of the problems. So you're right, heaven forbid, Caroline, you're right, even now. Um, and that's been one of the issues that's dogged the development of a treatment, because by the time people present with so-called cognitive impairment, you're closing the door after the horse has bolted. So therefore you must have in parallel some kind of readout during that time. And it has to be in healthy people. And if it's in healthy people, certainly in the United Kingdom, you couldn't all go to the doctor. The NHS is overburdened as it is. So you'd have to have some sort of home test. But if you have a home test, it would be unethical to find out all on your own that you
uh,
have a definitive diagnosis. So you'd do some kind of screen that would deliberately incorporate what we call false positives. A false positive is where you think you have something and you haven't. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it would deliberately be built in to have false positives. So you'd go to the doctor and say, actually, no, you're fine. Yeah. But
Got it.
sometimes it might not be. So it's three things. It's a home-based screen, just a
Uh-huh.
screen, followed by a saliva diagnostic test. And if it proved positive within that 10 to 20-year time window before you have if you took our drug, and if our drug works in humans as it does in mice, that is, of course, a big if because we're not in the clinic yet. If it does, it would stop any more cells dying, which means if you took it in the window before you had any symptoms, then you would never have the symptoms. That's the theory.
Wow.
So
That's
that would be
amazing.
a very low cost, easy treatment. So it wouldn't involve hospital visits or complex brain scans or brain surgery or stem cells or anything that's expensive or unpleasant or ethically compromising. Yeah, it'd be quite straightforward.
That's amazing. That's
That's the
exciting.
dream. That's the dream. Yeah, that's why I don't have to wonder why I get up in the morning.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you so much. I mean, I can talk with you and about this topic for hours and
Yeah, well, something it's the biggest unmet need of our time. So,
yeah, yeah, no, definitely.
well,
Um,
my own mum passed with it, and most people I know of a certain age will say they have an auntie or an uncle or a granny or a mum or a dad. Everyone has got someone. Yeah. So I feel
yeah,
like I can look people in the eye and say I know how you feel. Yeah, because my own mum
yeah.
had. Yeah.
And we had another webinar last month, and we are talking about how, or the doctor that was with us was telling us the importance of learning something new, whether it's dancing, whether it's swimming, whether it's a new language, for preventive, and also a lot of things that you mentioned today. So
Yeah.
it overlaps.
The main thing is socializing and activity. And above all, doing what you enjoy. That's why I'm slightly cynical about brain exercises and so on, because who wants to do brain exercises? It's much better to go and have a drink with someone and an argument. A nice argument. That's much more, exciting than just on your own doing brain exercises. But I don't want to knock it. But on the other hand, I think if you are able to interact with another human being, that has to be good. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Caroline.
I want to open it to Q&A. We have almost 15 minutes.
Mhm.
So first question is, and don't be shy, there's no stupid questions, just, please put it in the chat box. So with AI content popping up everywhere, how do you think our brains reward and error prediction systems might get rewired? And could that spark new mental health issues?
I think the short answer to that is yes and yes. Yeah. So the thing is, the brain gets rewired every moment you're alive. So Caroline, you and I have different brain configurations of our brain cells now from when we started this conversation. So your brain will always be changing every moment you're alive. It's never static. So this is what's called plasticity, which means that the brain will literally, the experience will literally leave its mark on your brain. So AI is just one of many influences, or the environment that AI creates is just one of many influences as you live your daily life in terms of rewiring your brain. What concerns me is that we might have problems distinguishing reality from truth and fakery, as I've said, the more convincing and powerful it is. And that might lead to confusion. It might lead to, I don't know, perhaps people depending on it and then being let down in some way or deceived, feeling deceived in some way, which might lead to psychiatric issues. Um, I think we're living in a world that is way more uncertain and where everything is being questioned rather than the certainty of my childhood, for example, when such things obviously didn't exist and where we knew right from wrong. We had a moral clarity in what was true and what was false. And it just had the print and broadcast media. You didn't have new media. And life was much simpler. And I think now for the brain, it is a problem because we will adapt to whatever environment we're in. And if we're in these silos of social media, whether they are contrived by AI or otherwise, then that will literally leave its mark on your brain. And if it's not opposed or mitigated by living a real life in 3 dimensions,
Yeah.
then clearly we're going to see consequences we haven't necessarily bargained for, and perhaps that are still unknown.
Wow. Yeah. So a lot. And as things are changing, like you said, it's just unknown what.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, we have another question. Empathy and understanding go a long way when supporting someone else who's feeling the challenges of mental health. But how does one self-help from mental health perspective when doing these things?
You mean when you are supporting someone else? who's going through mental health problems, how do you support yourself to do that?
How do you, yeah, because it's you
Yeah.
support other people, but how do you
Sure,
support?
yeah, and there's always yeah, someone who says who looks after the person. Yeah, yeah. That's a tough one. It depends on your lifestyle and the culture in which you're living, of course. I mean, for many people, they have cultures that are very supportive, the village atmosphere, or they have the grandmother, or as I've just said, they might have their church and a vicar. But sadly, that's not always the case for people. And if the question is how do you do it from within, that is requiring huge resources, and you just have to somehow make sure that you yourself are looking after yourself, so that the baseline would be that you're eating and sleeping appropriately, you're not giving up for this other person, you're
Mhm.
sleeping and eating, so you have a duty to look after yourself, and in order for you to be able to care for someone else. How you do that will depend very much on your lifestyle and your culture. But I think it is a challenge when you are. I'm thinking of people, for example, the spouse people with dementia. They're the ones I know most, yeah, who suffer,
Yep.
and because they are often going through bereavement without society according them the respect of someone who's just lost someone, because their loved one is still alive. But if they're in advanced dementia, the spouse will often feel that they've already lost them. I felt like that with my mum. I thought she'd gone. She wasn't there, and she was this. But so I think let's take that as an example. It's the one I know best. Um, the advice I would give there is to seek out people in a similar situation. There's very few situations that you're the only one. Yeah, usually there's scenarios where other people are in equally horrible situation or miserable situation to you, and that can help a lot. It's not that people have solutions, but you do get comfort. In fact, if you're giving empathy and support to someone else, someone to give empathy to you, and you get to.
Yeah.
So that would be my recommendation. If indeed, let's take the example of Alzheimer's. If indeed the UK, the US is the same as the UK, there are lots of charities and self-help groups out there. One of the good things about the internet is you can find people who are going through the similar kind of traumas to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So being aware and yeah, putting yourself first, when it comes to just
Yeah, well,
taking.
it's a bit like on aircraft. They say before you do the children's oxygen mask, make sure your own seatbelt is securely. I feel I can recite this off. I've been on there. So it's a bit like that. Make sure your own seatbelt is securely fastened first before assisting
Yeah,
others. Yeah.
exactly. So that leads me to another question again, because of everything we're talking about, how our work environment is changing. Like
Mm.
I remember, I don't know, 20 years ago, no one would say that I need a mental health day off, or I'm
Yeah.
like, it just wasn't. Now it's more acceptable.
Yeah, I know.
So, do you think with everything that's happening, and to your point, the way that the brain is changing, do you think the future of workplace will be advanced enough to design environments and
Well,
schedule based on
yeah.
neuroscience?
I think that to a certain extent, people may be less resilient than previous generations, the so-called snowflake generation. So, um, if you haven't experienced hardship or bad things and come to terms and realize that you can survive and how to deal with them, if
Mhm.
you've just been protected, let's say by a screen of cyber life, then it's going to be very hard for you to cope with issues. I mean, if you're a human being, everyone will have in their life financial or commercial or personal or medical or romantic problems. And even a very sad example I gave is even our Princess of Wales, Catherine, who you think would have everything. She herself had a very serious illness last year and was out there. So no one escapes. Everyone will have a problem. And in fact, someone could argue that that actually makes you the interesting individual you are, is how you cope with those problems, how you deal with them. Yeah. So you can't escape that. So I think the idea is not so much to try and protect people from it, but more help them cope and how to get strong. So if we're talking about mental health, I think I do blame a lot on the screen technologies, unashamedly, because people are not engaged in a three-dimensional world. They're protected by the screen. Yeah. And then when they do come face to face with someone, they can't really cope. Or if there's an emotional problem, they can't cope. Whereas when you're a small child in the real world, you're playing games, you're having to learn how to give and take, how to share, how to, let's make up a game and you be the cowboys and I'll be the Indians and we'll do the, you be, all of
Yeah,
that is a way of compromising, negotiating, developing
absolutely. Yeah.
imagination. So, yeah, and striking out, I don't want to play that game. Well, I do, this kind
Yeah.
of thing, childish though that seems, is actually building up in you a resilience and an inner world. And if you don't have that inner world because it's secondhand, it's outsourced, or it's imported by some web designer, then you're not going to be so robust, and that's why
Yeah.
you're going to succumb. You're going to be bullied online, you're going to take it personally. You're going to be worried about, do people respect you or not? You're going to worry, are you conforming? But then you want to stand out, so then so all of these issues, I think, should not be catered for by isolating people more or cocooning them more, but by actually trying to help people live the full life and to develop a strength, an inner strength. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my
And
own
what
view.
and what you mentioned earlier as well, like also the power of touch and hugging and
Oh, it's
uh,
incalculable. Yeah, and it's huge. Yeah. And
yeah.
without those things, and without learning how to actually talk to someone and interpret body language, which we all do subconsciously, but nonetheless, if you've never rehearsed it, you're not going to be good at it, and it's going to be even more aversive than it is,
Yeah.
otherwise you'd be a strange person.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
what I always say is hiding behind screen. We can't see each other, but there is still,
No, of
your
course.
ears still
They
hiding.
can't see your sweaty palms, yeah, for example. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have one more question. Is there any health issues that comes with weather, especially when it's called mental health and stress related issues with weather?
We were, you're talking to someone who comes from a country, it rains all the time. It might cap why the English are like they are, yeah, moaning. Huh? No, there is, of course, something called seasonal affective disorder. There are certain people that in the winter months do get more depressed because they're lacking the light, the daylight, yeah. And that is cured by having a lamp that gives full spectrum light that people sit in front of. But it is called SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and it's quite well known
Oh,
that
wow.
yeah, most people do feel happier in the sunshine, for that reason. Yeah, so
Yeah.
in that sense, yes. But then I think culturally, coming from a country where every day it rains, pretty much, and where, as I just said, a heat wave is considered to be just 30 degrees, which it is now. Uh, if weather influenced a lot, you'd have certain nationalities, perhaps, who lived in like hot, sunny climates, having a very different mental state to people living perhaps in Scandinavia or something. But I don't think that's necessarily the case. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. So I just want to see if there are any other questions. I don't see any more questions in
Mhm.
the chat box. We have
Okay.
two more minutes. So thank you so much. So yeah, because again, so topics that we talked, just to
Mhm.
summarize what we talked about quickly, the way that AI and screen and social media, all that is affecting, and how it's we have to look at it as a wholesome. You mentioned exercise, reading, to get
And
your
eating
creative.
together if you can. Yeah.
So yeah, being part of like social group, because you mentioned church, for example, have that
Mhm.
social group, taking care of yourself, and then also what I like that you said is just monitoring yourself.
Yeah.
How's my habit changing when it comes to sleep, when it comes to
Yeah.
eating, and things
And
like
don't
that.
think that you are a robot. Don't think that it doesn't matter if you're not sleeping or and you're staying up all. I have a friend who's always boasting he's up all night, you're doing this or that. That's not a boast. That's just silly. It's just
Yeah,
silly. Yeah.
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 Especially again for our audience, they're you're traveling for work, you're caring for your family, you're studying, so on and so forth. There's a lot to balance or juggle, but don't
Yeah.
forget
Well, go for a run in the morning. Make sure you eat with your family.
be
And when you're
busy.
on the plane, grab a book rather than the laptop. Yeah, reading like a really good novel. And yeah,
Yeah,
and then find
and get together.
get together. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you so
Well,
much
Karen, it
for
was a great pleasure. Thank you.
incredible insight. It's been truly eye-opening and really inspiring. I hope everyone is walking away with a deeper understanding of how the brain works and how, sense of optimism and what's possible, and definitely prioritize brain
Prioritizing. Yeah.
health and mental health. Let's keep this momentum going. Be kind to each other, be there for each other, support each other, try to,
Yeah.
get together in person as much as you can. Uh,
Exactly.
and hopefully we get to, be able to apply what we talked about today in our everyday life, even if it's small baby
Even
steps.
if it's a small thing, yeah, every journey starts with a simple step.
Exactly. But take that first step.
Indeed. Yeah.
Thank you
Okay.
so
Well,
much.
good luck,
Appreciate
everyone.
it.
And thank you for the invitation. And
Pleasure.
well, all the best. Take care.
Take
Bye bye.
care. Bye.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.